All right, well, we'll start, hey? I might stand over here while I'm talking. Welcome, everyone. It's lovely to see you all.
It's probably better if you stand here because you've got a close-up as well.
Oh, okay.
You can stand
the man with the shots. No, I don't want to.
I'm just conscious of what's going on.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. Yeah. It's great to see you. And I know some of you, I recognise some of you from the West Coast last year as well as from the East Coast. So it's lovely that you've made the effort to come and see us again. We enjoy seeing you all. We are obviously, well, you should probably know, I think, but we're at the end of a 4-month trip. This is our last event here in North Carolina. And so we're slightly travel weary by this point. Yeah. But we always get excited to do the events, so it gives us a burst of energy. Our spirit friends come along and get us G'd up as well. Yeah. So after this, we'll be in North Carolina for about 10 or 12 days, and then we're going to fly home. And once we get home, we're going to do another seminar within a few weeks as well. So hopefully you'll hear the recording of that. I know some of you are actually coming to that seminar, which is exciting as well. All right.
I might have to take those down lower, unfortunately.
What's
fans.
That, Jay? Yeah. Do you want to
talk
do
about
that?
the aircon.
Yes. Okay. So we're here for 3 days. We arrived yesterday and we set up this entire room. About midway through the morning, they came and told us that the air conditioning is broken in this room. So we are very sorry about that. It was completely outside of our control. We know it is very hot. We negotiated to get some fans in the back, but they are affecting our sound recording. So we're having to put them down quite low. And also, if you came in while they were still up high, you would have heard it's very hard to attend to what we're saying because they're quite loud. So, Jay, do you want to adjust them down?
I'm going to have to take them down further because there's slight whine to them as well.
Yeah. So we're going to try to preserve the recording because, as many of you would appreciate, the recordings are pretty valuable, aren't they? They're something you revisit time and time again. So we're going to have opportunities to feel our discomfort here in the room over the weekend. Feel how that feels for us. It's not. We try to make these rooms very comfortable for you because we understand we're often presenting challenging topics, and so we like to make it as comfortable as possible. We've gone to a lot of effort to get you padded chairs and different things this year, but unfortunately, this was outside of our control. Now it's beeping at Jay. What's happened?
It's not beeping anymore.
Okay, all right. Okay, are they still running?
They're still running, yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Just slightly.
Yeah. So we're going to take regular breaks. Eugene over here is going to monitor our temperature as well. If we exceed 90 or if we get to 90 degrees, we're going to head into that side of the hotel where the air conditioning is still working and hang out for 10 minutes and come back in. Yeah. So that's the plan. I'm sorry, it's not much we can do about it. They say they're waiting on a part to come. They've been waiting for a couple of weeks, and they didn't actually let us know until yesterday mid-morning that it was a problem. But I don't think it's likely that the part's going to come today or that it will be fixed. So we have to face facts. We're going to be in a hot room for 3 days together. Yeah.
Hot, smelly room by the end of it, maybe.
Yes. So rather than dressing for the air conditioning, dress for the deep south summer. Yeah. Yes. All right. Other logistical things just to mention before we start. You would have seen, hopefully, that there's bathrooms just in the hallway as you're coming down, men's and ladies there. Parking, I hope everyone's sorted their parking. There is an important notice about parking. There is the multi-storey car park here that hopefully you all use. That's free to use during the day. If you stay overnight, there is a charge. There is a nearby mall called Carrboro Mall. Don't park there is basically the message because they will tow your car unless you're using the shops in that mall. So apparently it's very strictly enforced. Paddy kindly let me know as a courtesy to you. So if you need to go and move your car, do it now. All right. That's the basics of the logistics we have for the weekend. We're going to run for 3 days, obviously, finish on Sunday evening. And we have, you would have seen in the email that I sent to you, the opportunity to give a gift. on Wednesday following the event. Would you mind giving me a show of hands of who thinks that they're likely to be there? Would you help me with counting? I'll count this side and you count that side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay.
20 on this side.
20.
What's your?
I've got 12, so 32.
Around 30.
Yeah.
30.
All right. If you wish to join after the weekend, you feel all inspired, you're welcome to come along, but just having a rough number helps us to plan the logistics. Yeah. Now, I should say there's been quite a large attrition rate in terms of who's actually made it here today. About a month ago, I had 138 people registered, and there's 94 of you here again today. So that's something that's the lowest return on reservations that we've had the whole trip. So we might discuss that just for the benefit essentially of the people who aren't here, who did book for the recording, just the fact that a lot of time, effort and energy goes into creating these events, not just on our part, largely on our part, but also other helpers that I'll mention shortly. And when you register and then book even within a few weeks, usually you should have your travel arrangements sorted out, you should have it in your calendar. So when there's a large amount of people who don't come, it's quite disrespectful to the love and energy that has gone into creating the event. Yeah. All right. We do want to thank some people before we start. There's a fellow called David who is very dear to us, and he, out of the blue, sent us a very large donation which has enabled us to fund this entire 4-month trip. So we're extremely grateful to him, and you might want to join us. Yes. He doesn't even come to these events, but he just wanted to give the gift to everyone who attended. So that's a special gift, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. All right. We'd also like to mention Paddy Matthews, who she'll be a bit embarrassed by this, but we do.
So stand up, Paddy, so everyone can see you. Thank you, Paddy.
Yeah.
Now you've got to know what you're thanking Paddy for,
yes,
right?
I'd just like to let you know a little bit of what Paddy's done for us this year. So this year you will notice we're now video recording the events. Last year we just had audio recordings. So since we left North Carolina last time, really, Jesus has been working on getting a setup in country so that we don't have to travel with all of the equipment that's required. So obviously we don't travel with speakers and speaker stands and camera mounts, and so all of these things have had to be ordered and received by Paddy at her home and checked individually to see that there's no faults or damages with them. And she's stored them all in her house all year long, including this massive whiteboard and these chairs even. So she's given us a lot of her space. In addition to that, all of the books, hopefully you all received a set of books. So that's nearly 600 books were received to Paddy's home, and they're quite heavy too. She had to bring them into her home. She checked every single one of them for me for damage. So quite a lot of energy and time on her part for that. Yeah. In addition to that, she also made, along with some assistance from Jane, but she had the idea that she would like to create the book bags for each of you, and so she handmade them, and Jane helped, yes. So a lovely gesture.
Not only just for you, but also for Canada.
For the people in Canada as well. So that's a huge amount of book bags. Yeah. And in addition to that, she has also gifted us her entire home to stay in. She has gone to stay somewhere else. So while we're here, we have the gift of her beautiful home in nature where I can watch the hummingbirds play. It's a very big gift. Yeah. So thank you, Paddy.
Thanks, Paddy.
In addition to that, she also did a huge amount of research trying to find venues for us this year. So Patty actually travelled to Charlotte and she visited, I don't know how many venues, at least 20, didn't you, in Charlotte, as well as here in Chapel Hill, looking for a venue that would suit us. She filled in all these sheets for me, detailing all the details on each one, and a spreadsheet that I was able to monitor everything that was going on. I did that around the world actually with different people, but Patty did a lot of that here. So we thank her for that as well. Huge effort. So thank you, Patty. It's a lot of love, not only towards the participants, but also to Jesus and I, the gift of your home. So thank you. I would also like to mention Jane, who is here somewhere.
Where is Jane?
Oh, she is, in the white. Yeah. So Jane helped Patty with the book bags in the US to finish them off, didn't you? And also Jane helped with the venue searching. And she actually came to this venue and found this venue. And this venue would be good if the air conditioning wasn't working, which is something that she didn't know about at all either. So so thank you, Jane, for that. Finally, you should have your personal gift from Jesus and I, which is the 4 Paget message volumes. So some of you might have heard in recordings that I've talked about them in the prior events on this tour, but they're a special compilation of the messages. We find them special. They're compiled by Dr. Stone, who was present when many of those messages were received in the early 20th century, and they are compiled in thematic order or in themes, which we find very inspiring to read them in that way, and hopefully you will as well. So we hope you enjoy them. We're going to refer to them over the weekend. Inside of your volume 1, you're also going to find a prayer card, and that prayer card is given to you by Tim and Julie, who live in Switzerland, also people who don't know you and may never meet you, but they printed them all to give as gifts to everyone who comes. And they have a beautiful nature print
for the
on the
entire
front.
journey.
For the entire 4 months. So, yeah, we should thank them as well. Hey? Yes. So that's all the thank yous I think I want to give. I want to thank my wonderful man for just being a legend on this tour. Puts in a lot of work behind the scenes as well as in front of you guys. So,
Thank you, Mary.
We really hope you gain a lot from the program this weekend. And if you're challenged by the temperature or the material, it's an opportunity, isn't it, to practice the principles of humility and hopefully stretch yourselves a little beyond where you're comfortable, because that's where growth occurs. So welcome, everyone.
So if you take out your Paget messages, we want to refer to book number 1, the first volume.
You're going to ask me which page, aren't you? Yep.
In that volume, I channeled to Paget the prayer for divine love, which is on our website as well, but it's also in this book. I think it's also on your prayer card. So you can also refer to your prayer card that you should have inside of that volume, hopefully.
Inside of the first volume. You
the
should
first
have a
volume,
prayer card,
yeah. And that brings us to the subject we've been discussing with everybody on this trip. So we'd like to just talk about the subject we want to talk about with you, but we're going to focus on a certain aspect of the subject that we haven't focused on with anybody else in the trip. Does that make sense? So the subject is pray for God's love, and that's the subject we've been talking about since we arrived in the UK. We did an event there in Cirencester and we started talking about that then. So have any of you been listening to some of those recordings or seen them? So many of you, yeah? So you've caught up with at least the introduction we gave in the UK. I know Portugal is missing, isn't it, still, I think? Yes, so you haven't seen that yet. And I don't think you would have seen Canada yet unless you were there, probably.
No, Michael has it up. Yes.
Okay, so that is up.
And
So
it's
you
on
would have
Spotify.
missed Portugal.
No, I
which
think, is Portugal on Spotify? Yes.
Oh, it is on, okay. So the main thing we want to do here is focus an extension of the conversation we were having in Canada. So remember, in Canada we introduced the idea that there were 3 parts to this, you could say, theme that we want to discuss with you. There's the word pray, and then of course who to, and then of course for what. So this is what to do, this is who to, and this is for what. You follow? So we want to focus our attention in particular to what to do, what we need to do, rather than who it's to and for what at this conversation with you. We've yet to really discuss the benefits of God's love. We have done that in many other occasions, of course, but a lot of what we've discussed as to the benefits of God's love, we've actually not yet published anywhere. We did a lot of presentations in our home over the last few years, and none of them, they all got recorded, but hardly any of them have been produced. But during that phase, we talked a lot about God's love and its benefits. And this often will help, and this is something we want to do more of in the future. And we also want to get those recordings out so that you can understand the benefits of it. You see, one of the problems we have on earth is we don't grasp the significance of God's love in terms of day-to-day life. We sort of view God's love as a spiritual concept rather than a real thing. And unfortunately, because of that, many of us don't even have a desire for it because we've yet to treat it as a real thing. And so you can see we're going to have more discussions about each of these subjects. God, in terms of God's nature, character, obviously we need to say a lot more about that. And also God's love, what it does for you and what it does to change you. We will need to have a discussion about that in more detail. But in this trip, we've been focusing more of our attention on prayer, what it actually is. Because that's where most people come unstuck with this process. So after a while, you get to know God's character through education about God. And after a while, you get to know through education what the love may bring you. You may not have faith that will happen, but at least you get to know through education what it may bring you. But when it comes to the action we need to take as individuals, as humans, that's where the majority of people get very, very stuck when it comes to their relationship with God.
And it's significant, isn't it? Because it's the thing that's the part that we have to bring to the table, if you like. And God and God's love are there, but it's the prayer that's going to enable us to engage with God and God's love.
That's right. Those things, God and God's character and God's nature, God's already got those things. He doesn't need to improve them. The problem with us when it comes to prayer is that often we don't understand really what it is, but also what it will do for us. And this is the area, because humans are prone to sin, it's the area where we're going to have to do the most work. And it's going to have to be our work. You can't rely on God to do it for you. It's going to have to come from within yourself, right? So this is why we've been talking about prayer. Now, prayer is, as we introduce in Canada, a sincere longing. Now, that is defined for you in the Paget messages. How many of you have actually read the Paget messages, the entire lot of them? So very few of you, right? How many of you have done it like 20 times? Right, a few of you, right? What you will find if you do that, is that each time you read them, you will learn new things. And that's because as your soul grows, so too will your comprehension, your emotional comprehension of the material you're reading. How many of you found it difficult to even get started on them? Yeah? So many of you will find that because there are certain influences around you that even prevent you from getting started. And those influences very much depend upon you. And this is something we would like to discuss with you. When we talk about these two words, sincere and longing, most of us don't really grasp what it means to have a strong passion for something. What we notice, particularly in Western societies, a lot of things come very easy to us. So if you want to get some food, all you've got to do is get a little bit of money, and even that nowadays is relatively easy. We look at some of the workers who are working for their money, and we go, we would never employ them, and yet somebody's employing them, and they're getting enough money still, even though their work is terrible and shoddy and without any consistency and reliability, and they talk most of the time and they don't actually do, and yet still people pay them, and we're sort of blown away by that, really. But it's so easy even to do that nowadays, and even some governments, and yours I think included, right, gives money even to those who don't work. Right, so that's even, so we can easily get the money. And then the second part of it is going down the shop and just getting something. You didn't have to grow it. You didn't have to prepare the soil to do it. You didn't have to put the energy in watering it. You just go there and get it. Like magic, That's what it seems like to many of us. And so we get into this phase, particularly in Western society, where we start thinking that everything should come easy. That everything should be like, all I have to do is just say I want it and it's there. I want it and a little bit of effort and it's there. Right? Can you see this is a big problem in your society? Isn't it?
And it's hugely debilitating because we come to think that that's our capacity, actually. That we come to view our ability to provide more effort, to engage more will, as almost impossible after a while. We think, well, I'm at my full capacity, but actually God created us to understand our potential is far more than we usually engage our will, that we usually engage effort. Yeah.
And a lot of us have been trained since the moment we are born, unfortunately, in Western society. From the moment we are born, things have been on tap, easy to access. Now, that's not the case for other societies, but it is particularly the case for Western societies. And this is one reason why many people around the world are attracted to Western societies, ironically, because they look at that and they go, well, it's so easy for them. It's so hard for us to do the same thing. In some societies on earth, right at this moment, they're struggling just to get enough water to drink. It's not on tap. They've got to travel for kilometres or miles to go and get and carry the water in order to use it. And there's not enough, if you start carrying water for miles, there's not enough for you to wash in it. Yeah. It's really only enough to drink, really. And so they don't have the benefit of tap water to wash in or any of these other things, just things that each of you have probably taken for granted since your birth, right, for them are a struggle to do. Now, because of that, societies that have taken for granted things from birth believe and grow up to believe that such things being provided are normal. That somebody else should provide those things to them. Nobody can provide God's love to you. So this is going to be a big problem. If you want a relationship with God, it's going to require a much greater effort in your life than many of you have ever exercised, right? Ever in your entire life, because a lot of things have come easy. And in each Western society, ours included in Australia, Canada, it's similar, the EU, the whole of the European Union, and England and Ireland and all those places too, very similar. The Baltic countries, very similar, where everything is on tap. And for most of us, it's been on tap since we arrived on Earth. And so we don't even hardly consider how difficult it is or how much effort needs to go into producing some of these things. Mm-hmm. You know, we're used to being able to go, here in West, being able to go and buy a car. We didn't need to design it, we didn't need to build it, we didn't need to be on, doing the manufacture of all the metal and all the parts, the tens of thousands of parts involved with it. It's the same with our mobile phones. We need a new phone, go and buy one, right? No thought really to all of the technology, all of the effort, the years, in fact, decades of effort that had to go into producing those things.
Let alone the people who had to mine the cadmium under terrible conditions.
Gold, cadmium, because they're all in your phones, right? All of these precious metals. Some of them are also radioactive metals in some things like fire alarms and other things like that. So we've got all of these things going on in the world and we have no idea of the cost of them. And in the Western society, most people are just not aware and they have not educated themselves about the cost of them. Right? Now, last year, I educated you a little about the cost of a few things. One of them was toilet paper. Right? It's a very, very costly thing to do the environment, is to keep using toilet paper. How many of you gave up toilet paper in this year, altogether? Now, if you just look around, and I'm not doing this to shame you, I'm doing it for a purpose, and we'll talk about the purpose in a minute. So be honest with yourselves. So very few of you, but some. Maybe 15, 20? Maybe.
Maybe 10.
Maybe 10.
Yeah.
Or a bit more than 10, but.
Yeah.
So maybe, shall we say 20% of you, maybe. I think there's about 90-something of you here.
94, yeah.
94?
Yeah.
So about 20% of you gave up toilet paper. Even though Jesus told you it was a sin.
Not just anybody.
Not just anybody. Jesus told you it was a sin. Right? Remember I said that was a sin. And still, the majority of us didn't do anything about it. And by the way, that's a physical thing. Giving up a physical thing and working through your feelings about it and doing something different and even having the intention to do a physical thing is so easy compared to doing an emotional thing or a sexual thing or a spiritual thing. Do you understand? Remember, last year we talked about the hierarchy of things and we said spiritual is going to have the biggest benefit to you, and then there was the emotional, wasn't there, next down, and then there was the sexual stuff that we have, and then there was the physical, right? We said that. This is a physical thing to give up. It's really easy to give up. Your bottom will love you for it, by the way, as well. So you will actually like it when you give it up. Most of us don't think that, actually. When we begin giving up things, we think we won't like it, but we actually end up loving it, right? Mm-hmm. But can you see, if it's that hard, where, say, and this is what we're finding worldwide, by the way, this is not just you guys, it's like with the toilet paper issue, worldwide, around 20%, and sometimes less, heard that and did nothing about it. So, did something about it, 20%. So that means 80% of people hearing a truth about it did nothing about it. Does that make sense to you? Yep. That's a lot, isn't it? Can you see you can hear a truth and do nothing about it quite easily? Can you see that? It's so easy to not do something about a truth, right? This one's on the way out too, I think. So let's look at some other things that we talked about. Well, one of the other things I talked about was coffee. Remember that? So coffee. Oh, that's better. Coffee. How many of you gave up coffee? Entirely. So a bit more, right? Right,
No,
so,
well, let's count. Leave your hand up.
Or you never did it.
Oh,
or
yeah,
you
if
never
you never
did it in the first place. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so that's probably half.
Yeah.
Sure. So we look at coffee and you could say 50% did that. Why did you find coffee easier than toilet paper? Because it's actually harder.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? If we have a mic, I'm happy to hear some of your comments about that. What happened there? You leave your hand up, by the way, when you put your hand up.
The coffee was, like if I'm going out somewhere
Yeah.
and I don't have a bidet or, a cup of water or something, it was easier to use so I guess it was convenience
I
when you're
suppose
out
with this
and
one I'm
about.
referring to at home in particular, because obviously the facilities are not available out
Yeah.
oftentimes. But at home, we're talking about home.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, now do we need to do a resurvey then? Yes.
Do we need to resurvey the toilet paper? Let's
Yeah.
resurvey toilet
At
paper.
home, who gave
where
it
you
up?
dealt with it at home and you never used toilet paper again. Okay, so that's more like 30% or maybe more, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
say 30.
Sorry?
We were trying to be honest.
Yes.
Yeah. That's all right. I
We
should
need
have
to be
been
more
more specific
specific
about my
in the
question.
question.
Okay, so here it's 50-50, right? Okay. What about the really interesting thing of pets? How many of you had pets and you did something about it? Right, so maybe about 10. If you gave them away, put your hand down. In other words, you actually did something rather than giving the problem to somebody else. You follow me? This is about 7. Is that right? How many of you actually have pets? Can I have a serve of that? Okay, so
It's
more
about
than 50% of
more
the
than
audience,
50,
probably.
yeah.
Yep. And 7 of those. So you could say again, we're down around the 20% mark, aren't we? Doing something about that. Now you're starting to get my point. Can you see my point? Firstly, you don't believe Jesus when he says something. You really don't. Most of you don't, right? And that's okay. I'm not worried about that so much. But when it comes to God, you're going to have a problem with that. Because God's not with me, I'll just go, no worries, I'll talk to somebody else about it. God's not going to do that with you because he has control of the laws that govern you. And though you're under those laws right now, every day, right till the time you pass and after you pass as well, and you're going to bear the consequence of that. Does that make sense? But most of us don't think that way. Most of us think completely different to that, don't we? We think the person who tells me these things is a bit of an idiot, or he's mistaken. This is what we tell ourselves, right? That he's mistaken. Yeah? Now, I'm not mistaken on these things. I'm definitely not. But the point I want to make to you is these are only physical things. As we pointed out to the guys in Canada, the pet issue actually has a lot of emotions tied into it too. And because of that, it's a lot harder to deal with than, say, toilet paper. You understand? And for some of you, toilet paper has more emotions to deal with than coffee, interestingly enough. Does that make sense? Is it that you don't want to touch your own bottom? Is that the idea, or what is it? Who knows? But you've got to work through the issue, right? So we can see these are just physical things, and yet we can hear a truth and do nothing about it. Can you see that? And what causes us to not do anything about hearing the truth is the real question. Because you can see, if we are going to learn sincerity, which is the point of this discussion, we got to look at what sincerity means. And in Canada, we did talk a lot about that, didn't we? What it means. It's connected with truth. It's one of the fundamental principles of your relationship with God is developing sincerity, right? God's laws respond to your sincerity. They all respond to your sincerity. So you can be in a poor condition but have sincerity and things can change. But no matter what your condition, whether it's poor or good, if you don't have sincerity, and I'd put to you that a person who doesn't have sincerity isn't in a very good condition anyway, but if you don't have sincerity, nothing can change. And the laws are going to correct that first. In fact, one of the primary things God is trying to do with all of his children is to correct their lack of sincerity. Now, just something I'd like to point out again about American society. You've learnt, and a lot of it's through Christian influences, but you've learnt to be insincere in many of your relationships and your discussions with each other. You've learnt to put on a pretty face and a pretty coat, like clothes, and a pretty house and a pretty situation, and you've learnt to present that to the world. Do you understand? This has been also taught to you from birth. Right? Now, of course, other societies have that same problem. When we're in the EU, it's very noticeable there too, how everyone is so hooked into appearances. But the problem is that creates a thing that we've talked about many times before that's called a facade. That's a spiritual problem. It's going to be a lot harder to give up than toilet paper. Do you follow? The facade that many of you still have and want to keep is going to be a big problem. And can you see also, facade is very much linked to, it's an antonym of, isn't it? It's the opposite of being sincere. So the problem is with that particular sin, when we want our facade and want to continue our facade, it's impossible for us to actually become sincere. And the very measure that God has of all of the universal laws that govern you is sincerity. So can you see, maintaining a facade, even though it seems innocent to you, is actually an extreme problem from God's perspective that God is attempting to correct.
Often also we think of facade, don't we, as something we present outwardly. But facade is also something that you impose upon yourself. This is why it is like a compounding problem. Often your facade is what you like to think is happening inside of you. The perception of yourself you would like to think is true. And so breaking down your facade requires this sincere desire to know what's really inside of me. And a lot of people struggle with that. They would prefer the facade they present to others to be the truth about how they feel inside. Yeah. And so a longing for truth is very important in this process as we break down our facade.
Yeah. So how many of you have been listening to Divine Truth for, let's say, more than 3 years? Well, that's a lot, isn't it?
Who hasn't?
Who hasn't? It's only the last 3.
One,
so
2,
very
3,
few
4,
in comparison.
5, 6, 7, 8.
Right, which is a bit sad, isn't it, in a way? It would be great if we had more and more people listening, right? But so you could say 95% of the audience has been listening for more than 3 years. And yet, we're hardly being able to handle a sin that's on a physical level yet. We're hardly able to change that yet. Does that make sense to you? So obviously there must be a problem with sincerity, mustn't there? Can you see that? So this is why we want to talk about it. And we've found this in a lot of countries. It's the same, where people have been listening for years and years, and yet the sincerity isn't there. Now, as I said, that doesn't bother Mary and myself so much, in that we're just going to keep trying to find sincere people. But it's going to bother you and your relationship with God, and what happens to you also when you pass. And also what happens to you in your day-to-day life, because God's laws are working against you when you're in an insincere state. So a lot of the things you attempt to do in an insincere state, God's laws are trying to destroy. Stop you from doing it. Does that make sense? So can you see this problem with sincerity is like in some ways, it's the crux of why we don't change. It's the reason why we don't change. And if prayer is defined as a sincere longing, how can we have a longing that's sincere if we have a problem with sincerity? Can you see we will have longings, you know, longings for all sorts of things, but from God's perspective, God's measure of them will be that they're all insincere. And if they are insincere, then the only thing that can correct you is the law, right? That's the only thing that can happen to you. You need to be corrected by the law, which is a painful process. And this is the reason why many of you seek comfort in your life, because you're avoiding the pain of your life. And here in the Western society, it is so easy to seek comfort in a life when there is already lots of pain in the life. What you can do is you can do what are called substitution techniques. You can say, well, I haven't got a partner, but I can go and get a prostitute. I can go and have one-night stands on Tinder. I can do all of those things, right? As a substitute for actually working through your issues with a relationship, for example. You can do that in a society like ours now. It's not good for you, right? Certainly not good for your sin. Certainly not good for your eternal future, and particularly the first part of your spirit life, but also for your life here on earth. The law is operating right now. It's operating to correct you right now. There are things that are going to happen if you choose to do such things. It's the same when it comes to things like eating. Many of us go, oh, well, you know, I have these feelings that I've got to get rid of, but I'd rather eat them away. You know, like make them go away with some food of some kind, you know. And usually it's not food, is it? It's normally junk food, is how we make them go away. But unfortunately, there's also that sin creates a whole heap of consequences for us in our physical life, but also there is going to be consequences for us spiritually from the time we do it, while we have that attitude all the way through our life until we clear away that attitude. And for many of you, it's going to be in the spirit world that you clear away, because there is no junk food in the spirit world. It's like there's no alcohol in the spirit world. There's no junk food either. There's no coffee either in the spirit world. People don't drink coffee. The only thing that gets drunk in the spirit world is water. And that's in every sphere. And how good a water you have depends on your condition. So if you're in the hells, the water you have stinks. It's smelly. It's terrible, right? It's like drinking out of a sewer, is what it's like. But it's the only thing you got to drink. Do you understand? Right? The smells, which is the way your spirit body survives, is by smelling smells that have content. That's how your spirit body survives. The smells in the hells are terrible, but you've got to have some because that's how your body survives. So you've got to smell it in order just to survive. Right? Many of you don't understand yet the consequences, the full consequences, yes, of the sin. And nobody from the spirit world wants to tell you. Most of them don't want to tell you because they're so shocked about it themselves that they can barely cope with the idea of it themselves. So they don't want to let people on earth know. But in the Paget messages, what does it say? How do they eat? Remember Ned asked his wife, what does she eat? And she says, all these things she said she eat, but then she said, but I don't really eat them. I smell them. And you can't really understand that yet, but that's how I eat them. That's how I imbibe them. And it's exactly the same for a person in the hells as it is in the celestial heavens, but what you've got to eat in the celestial heavens is like the best fruit and vegetables or whatever else you can imagine, right? Nuts and fruit mostly. In the hells, it's the same kind of thing, but they're all rotten. But you've got to eat it because you've got to survive. You're forced into it. The law forces you eventually into change, right? And this can be it's a very sobering thought, and all I'm trying to do is provide you with some education about it. so that you understand the consequence of not being sincere. Yeah, follow? So what we probably want to do is talk a bit more about sincerity. And in Canada, we talked about the concept of having sincere ignorance. You remember that?
Wasn't that cool?
Wasn't that cool? Yeah. So let's look at that.
Now, my love, I didn't put up your diagram for you. Do you want me to do that now as you speak? Or I can do it in the break, whatever you like.
Maybe we need... Have you got a copy of it there?
I've got it here.
No, I mean, we can do that in a break. I just want
All
to
right.
talk a bit more about sincere ignorance, because I want to focus on the subject or the topic of sincere ignorance. Now, a bit later, Mary will write out the entire process of what we need to do to develop desire to actually grow through prayer. But sincere ignorance is an interesting state. It's a state we need to reach. So we presented that concept of sincere ignorance, and what that concept really is that you know that you don't know. And you really feel that you don't know. You really get that you don't know. You really understand that you don't know. And when it comes to prayer, the majority of us don't know. That's why we haven't received the love yet, because we don't know what prayer is yet. Does that make sense? We hear the words, but we don't understand the significance of sincere, the word sincere, and the significance of the word longing. Remember prayer, you could say, we could replace the word prayer here, can't we, for sincerely long for God's love. That's what we could call it, sincerely long for God's love. If I don't understand the meaning of the word sincere, in terms of what kind of sincerity is going to be demanded of me, and I don't understand the meaning of the word longing, in other words, what does it mean to have a passionate desire for something that's not defined by selfishness, not defined by avoidance of pain, not defined by having a magical result, right? But actually something that is sincere in its longing. If I don't understand that, then of course I don't understand what prayer is. Right? And if I don't understand what prayer is, how can I get a result from it? Because God is the person who defined what prayer is, not me. Not anybody else who ever lived has defined it. God defines it. So here we're talking about, I need to know God's definition of it. And one of the best places to start is to realise that I don't really know what that is. I think I know, but I don't. You know, that's the best place to start. You could say that's the place of sincere ignorance. Now, the work that is involved in change is coming to a point of sincere ignorance. And what I mean by that is this. Most of us think we know. So we think we know. We think we know. We think we know. Do you understand? It's just a thought. It's not actually an experience of knowing. It's just a thought, a desire that we think we can know. So we think we know something. Now, true knowing can only occur in your soul. It cannot occur in your intellect. It is not going to happen in your intellect. But the problem is the majority of us have been taught from, again, the time of birth, we've been taught the intellect is supreme. The intellect is all that matters. The intellect is the thing to develop. That's why here we're in a place of USA which is called a university towns, right here, right? The three big cities here are all highly governed towards universities, right? And why? I bet you will not find a single university course here that actually talks about God's love. I bet you won't. You probably will struggle to find a single university course that talks about prayer as God defines it. No, there's probably plenty that talk about prayer in some other way, but not as God defines it. So the problem is that when we're growing up in an atmosphere where everybody thinks they know, we begin to think we know. And because we're in agreement with everybody else who thinks they know, we're now got this sort of codependence in what we think we know. And if I have to give up what I think I know, all of a sudden the people around me are going to have to consider giving up what they think they know. And there's going to be some conflict in that, most probably, because the average person doesn't want to give up what they think they know. And the main reason why they don't want to give it up is because underlying all of that is emotion. Things like worth is attached to what they think they know. So if I've got to give up the idea that I know something and my worth is attached to what I think I know, can you see it's not just now my intellect that I've got to give up the thought that I know, but now there's emotions that I'm going to have to address, that feel and deal with to help me know. And if that emotion is the very core of who I am, what I think I'm worth, that's going to be a huge thing to give up what I think I know. It's not just going to be a little thing. It's going to be a huge thing. It's going to require from me huge effort. And on top of that, I've got my personal feeling saying, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. You could say my personal sin is saying, don't do it. My personal sin is arguing for its survival. Right? Very hard for you to change something when your personal sin is arguing for its own survival. Yeah. So you could say this is a place of insincere knowledge. Can you see that? We don't think, we think we have knowledge, we think we know, we think we're not ignorant, but actually we're insincere because actually from a soul position we're completely ignorant and yet we don't know. We are. That's how we are on most matters. And unfortunately, the more educated we become, generally we become more intense, thinking we know on all these different issues. And so a highly educated Western society thinks it knows a lot of things it has no idea about, actually. An example of that, here in the USA, you believe you know a lot about the environment. You know barely anything at all, even about your own environment. Many of you, I ask you, how much rainfall do you get? Most of you do not know, right? But you do know where the shop is, right? You do know the things that humans created in their sin, but you don't know what is actually naturally occurring around you for a large degree. Right? You don't know. How many of you grow your own food? All of your own food? So nobody.
Some of your own.
Most of your own food? Nobody, or just one or two? Some of your own food. Right? So you don't even know how to grow food. And yet it's an essential supply requirement for your body. And we don't even know how to do it, most of us. This is what's happening in your country now, isn't it? All the people who actually know how to grow the food, they're getting sent back home, right? And so who's left over to grow the food? People who don't know. Right? So if you look at that, we think we know because we've used it. We think we know where it comes from. We think we know how to do it. We think we know how it's happened. But actually, we've never done it ourselves, and so we've never experienced the process of doing it. Does that make sense? How many of you have ever built a car? Huh? Yeah. So it was one of the things I did as a child. I helped my father build a car. How many helped your father build a car? One, maybe. Right? You don't know what goes in a car, the effort that goes into it, how hard it is to put together, all the different things you've got to think of, right? And yet we just go out and grab it, use it. A lot of times we run it into the ground without even thinking about how to make it last longer and all those kind of things, right? And now there's all these bells and whistles added, which are not bells and whistles, they're more like controlling factors that influencing your will. So you get to the stage now where now the car is telling you what to do, and we're okay with that. But I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay with a tool telling me what to do. But most of the earth now in Western society is okay with that. You know, you open the door, ding, 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 ding. Close the door, ding, 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 ding. Sit on the chair, turn on the ignition. Oh no, seatbelt, ding, 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 ding. Put the seatbelt in. Try to put it in park. Oh no, can't do it because the back door's still open. Ding, 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 ding. Yeah. And then the car is bossing you constantly, right? Thinking that you're an unintelligent being, when yet you're the ones, or people like us, made the thing in the first place. And these silly programmers have learnt how to control your will, right? Rather than let your will, in the guise of safety. In other words, in the guise of your fear, they are controlling your will. All against God's laws. The more closer you get to God, it's going to drive you bonkers. The closer you get to God, these things will drive you bonkers. They'll drive you nuts. That you'll think, what in the hell is going on here? Right? And yet, most people in society accept it because their fears say, oh, it's making me safer. Right? That's why we go to war, right? It's highly likely in the next 5 years you guys are going to be involved in war, right? Highly likely. Your society is headed in that direction. Most people in your society have no idea where their water comes from. None at all. You don't collect it yourself, you don't store it yourself, you don't clean it yourself. Somebody else does that for you, for the most part, right? You've never known what's involved in even storing it and collecting it and cleaning it. Most of you wouldn't even know how to do that, right? Never had the experience. Somebody else has done all that for you, and yet in 3 days without water, you're going to die probably, or get very, very ill, and within a week or two die, right? Without water at all. It's an essential life tool that you know. How to collect it, how to store it, how to clean it, how to make it for your own survival. It's an essential thing. And yet the average person in Western society knows nothing about it now. Isn't that interesting? An essential thing, and yet we know nothing. You see, there's a whole heap of things we think we know, and yet because we've never done them, we don't know. Right? Now, this also pertains to your spiritual life and your emotional life. There's a whole heap of emotions you've never let yourself have. In fact, your own parents stopped you from having them. And you've never let yourself have them. You don't know how to have them. Fear is one of those emotions. Another one's anger. Another one's like, you're able to live in them, but you're not able to have them, actually work through them. Shame, guilt, all these other types of emotions. The more facade in a society, the more it's governed to avoiding these emotions. Right? And as we just established, your society, like many others in the West, is in deep facade. And so therefore, hardly any knowledge at all about what a little baby, 3 months old baby can do. The majority of you haven't done for 20 years. Like the 3 months old baby knows how to cry. You've lost the ability to even do that, many of you. You understand? To even cry. A 3-month-old child knows how to feel its surroundings and know its surroundings. It doesn't have a conscious awareness of it, but it does know and does feel. Most of us have lost the ability to do that too. We don't know what other people feel or think. In fact, in a society that's based on facade, the goal is to not know what other people feel or think. Can you see that? Isn't that true? You go up to a person and say, how are you? Do you really want to know how they are? Or is it just like, oh, I'm okay, you're okay too, isn't it great? Yeah, life's great, everything's good. Let's move on to watching the footy match or something. Yep. Right? A lot of relationships that are so-called deep friendships, and they don't even know how each other feels about any belief. Have no idea. And so I'm so surprised you're thinking about God. Why would you do that? Like that kind of thing. Many of your friends, you've probably already experienced this with, right? Where they didn't know that you had these thoughts or feelings, right? Because as a society, we don't know what we think we know, right? So, thinking we know something is insincere. And what's the opposite to ignorance? Knowledge, isn't it? So it's insincere knowledge from God's perspective. Thinking we know when we don't know is insincere knowledge. And what do you think God thinks about insincere knowledge? Does he think it has a value? Remember,
does he even think it exists, Jesus?
Sorry?
Does he even think it exists?
He doesn't even think that it exists. Yeah. So it has zero value to God. What you think you know, God doesn't care at all about it. Not a single thing. You can fight God on the issue of what you think you know, and God's going, I'm not even noticing that conversation. Right? It's not even real to God. It doesn't exist. Right? So this is the trouble with us staying in our intellect to a large degree. We're thinking we're learning divine truth in our intellect, is that it basically has zero value to God. And by the way, it is zero reality. No, it's not real. It is, what's another word of saying that, way of saying that?
Imaginary.
It's imaginary, or let's be even more specific, easier. It's unreal. It's fake. It's, right? You know, interesting, I raised this, many of you become involved in using artificial intelligence, yes? In different ways, right? The word artificial, what does that mean? Fake. It means unreal. It's not true. So you're relying on artificial intelligence, something that is not intelligent, to govern life. That is so stupid to do. You understand? Like, it's literal stupidity to go and create something that is not real and then listen to what it says. Mm-hmm. But that's what we're doing. We're creating things that are not real. We've even called it not real. Artificial, not real. It's like artificial sweetener. Why do you have it? It's not real. Right? If you're going to have a sweetener, have sugar, it's real. If you're going to have a sweetener, have maple syrup, it's real. Even it'd be better to have honey, it's real. The artificial thing is being chemically manufactured and produced. It's artificial, it's not real, right? It's a figment of our creation, unreal. Do you think something that's created to be unreal is going to help you or hinder you? Right? So having an artificial sweetener is worse than having sugar. It's not better, it's worse. Right? It's going to have more consequences because it already began from being unreal, from being fake. So it's the same with everything with regard to God's laws. Anything that humans create that are fake is going to have a long-term negative consequence on the human race. Right? Now, how long that goes on for will depend upon how long we engage the fake and ignore the pain. Makes sense? I'm going to ask. Yep.
Just leave your hand up, Margaret.
Just leave your hand up, Margaret.
Yeah.
As you were saying that, it occurred to me, then sin isn't real, is it? But
Well,
yet it is sin.
There's a Paget messages. It was very interesting. It's not what God created.
Right.
And only what God creates is actually real. So even our sin is not really real. But as we pointed out in the Paget message, it has a huge effect.
It does.
It's the same with you imbibing something that's not real. You know, eating it. It's going to have an effect on you that's negative for sure, right? Because it's not real. It has its effect, but the substance itself isn't real. You understand?
I think so. I have a friend who's a Christian Scientist,
Yep.
and she and I have this conversation. I wouldn't call it an argument, and I was like, but sin is real. I mean, we hurt each other. There are consequences to my sin.
Well, that's the effect of sin, which
Right.
is certainly real.
But it seems like some Christian Scientists are like, but it's not real, therefore it doesn't matter, or something.
That's right. That's right.
And it's like, but it does matter.
Yeah, now there's many Paget messages that are written from the perspective of Christian scientists trying to work out the difference between that. And if you read them, which book are they in? I think they're in the second
2 or 3.
book, or 2 or 3.
I'll look it up overnight.
But we'll look it up.
Yeah.
But you will see the truth about that matter, that something can be not real and yet have effects. Something can be human created, in other words, which is what sin is.
Correct.
Not God created. Really, you could say everything that God created is real, and everything we create depends upon how much of God's creation is in it as to how real it's going to be. Can you see that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if it has none of God's creation in it, and it's very hard to find something that has none, but if it has none, then of course it's completely unreal. But everything is built from, say, physical substances, so they are real. So your artificial sweetener is created from chemical compounds, and all of them are real. But we end up with the result of what we create, which is what God sees as completely unnecessary, completely unreal. Like email is like that, you know. God created a system where you can email your thought to another person, and if they're open, they can receive that thought. You'll see this happening all the time in the spirit world. There's no computers in the spirit world, but there is email. That's where the invention came from. You understand? The whole idea of creating computers came from the spirit world, right? Because they wanted to mimic some of the things that were happening in the spirit world. But unfortunately, in so-called to benefit society, a lot of times they don't benefit society because there's more and more unreal in them. More of the things that God didn't create in them. The more I give you a tool that you become reliant upon, the less your natural body systems will work. Do you understand that principle? So if I give you a mobile phone, do you think you're ever going to work out what telepathy is? Well, you don't need to. You got your mobile phone. And as long as somebody else has a mobile phone too, so they've got to agree with you that it's real, and they've got to agree with you that they should use it. And as soon as you have that, you're entering a society that dumbs itself down from the soul capacity. And this is what we've become. We've become dumb humans, not intelligent creatures, unfortunately. We've become so dumb that we're relying on the tools we create rather than using them as tools. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, it's like a hammer having control of you. You know, I give you a hammer and it hits you on the head. That's really what's happening with your mobile phone, for example. It's barraging you with information, advertising. It's leveraging you as a money-making machine. The mobile phone is leveraging you as a money-making machine, and you're prepared to even give it to your children to give them leverage as a money-making machine. You're willing to give away the will of your own child. That's how extreme that is. Just for the sake of other people making money off your own children, and you're willing to let them do it. You understand? How extreme is that? That shows you how silly we're being as society, right? We're so used to thinking we know things, and we think, oh, isn't this great? This new tech's great. It's going to be this and it's going to be that. Now, I'm not against tech at all. I use some myself, as you can see. But it doesn't govern my life, right? And certainly I would never give it to a child to govern theirs. right? So you've got to understand the limitations of these things, but most of us don't, because we think we know and we're never assessing it as God would. And the reason why we're not assessing it as God would is because we think we know, so we're not in a state of asking God how he assesses it, because we already think we know the right thing. We already believe we're doing the right thing. So when you believe you're already doing the right thing, are you going to go and ask somebody else how to do it when you think you already know? Of course you're not. You're not in a state where you really want to know the truth. You're in a state where you already believe you have it. You understand? Now, unfortunately, when it comes to praying for God's love, most humans already believe to some extent they have it. They already, and particularly when a person starts listening to divine truth, starts listening to our teachings, they get even worse with that generally. They become more convinced that now they know divine truth. They know all about it. But it's all in their intellect. They've not yet had the experiences to know and understand. And so they enter a state where they think they know something when really they've got to firstly get to this state and understand they really don't know anything about hardly anything at all. Right? And start there. Does that make sense? Yeah. So if we go...
So do you want to go Courtney first,
Courtney
and then
first.
we'll go back?
Courtney
Yep.
first, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So when we start to come to terms with that we don't know things that we thought we did, do we just have to go through a phase of like the worthless feelings?
Yes, there are going to be feelings, isn't there, associated with this whole process, because in the process of building up a child to the point where it thinks it knows things, there's a whole lot of emotions it's getting fed. Do you understand? Like there's all these emotions of, if you know more than your friend, then you're worth more than your friend. Do you understand? That's why most people go to university, because they're not really interested very much in the subject they've chosen. Many people are only there so they feel more worth in society, because society looks up to you if you had an education compared to if you didn't. Right? So when I compare, like sometimes we meet some really lovely people on our travel. Some of them are very, very poor, of course. Some of them have had no education at all, and quite frequently they're in a far better condition. And the reason why they are, from a spiritual perspective, is because they don't think they know things, so they're able to listen to things better. Because they don't think they know, they haven't been educated to believe. And also it's easier for them to accept it because their worth isn't attached to what they know, because they don't think they know a lot. So they don't have their worth attached to what they know, right? So it's easier to educate them as well. When you are able to provide the education, they listen. Right? So there's going to be things like worth, there's going to be things like acceptance, right? Where people accept you better because you know. People, like, what other things? Acceptance.
There's another very major thing that you gain the facade of when you think you know. Does anybody
what do you gain?
feel what that is? Courts, do you have any idea? Respect, somebody said?
Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking a lot about the kind of like, I feel like this almost like spiritual competitiveness of like religion and feeling like you know what God's like and
it's caused wars.
How to be loving. And
There's another whole set of emotions.
Yeah, whole sets of emotions
that surrounds fear. We gain a false sense of security when we think we know
like
things.
we just, because if I don't know, then, but I also don't know
then
what the right thing is.
What do I know?
Just...
How do I decide? What do I do?
Yeah. So we're not used to be in a state of indecision. We want to make decisions fast, and to make decisions fast, we have to convince ourselves we know without research.
Yeah.
So when so we look it up on Google. I found it on Google. Oh, that's what I'm going to do. Huh? Like you wait for a machine to give you the research, and you've done barely anything to find out whether it's actually true or not through your own experience, and then you do put that into practice. It's really strange. Like. We had to stop one project in God's Way because that's what they started doing. Because with a growing project, they said, we've been educating everyone that soil. We've got to work on the soil first. And they want to grow things straight away. And I'm going, well, why did you plant plants for? Rip them all out. The soil's useless. It's not going to grow. Like, Look, you need to get more education, right? But because what do we also get by thinking we know? We get to feel like we're now better, don't we?
We're achieving
So,
something, we're better.
Important,
Capable.
Smart.
smart,
In control.
in control.
Right. What does right mean? We often associate right with better, don't we?
Yeah.
Right with more worthy, as Jesus
More
said.
worthy. Can you see straight away, these are now all emotions that we have attached to what we think we know, Courtney. And once we have these emotions attached, can you see giving up what we think we know isn't just a matter of going, okay, I know nothing. It's not going to be like that. It's going to be like, gee whiz, if I know nothing, then what's my worth? What's my value? What respect am I going to get from other people? What acceptance am I going to get in society? Will anybody love me? Or will anybody even think I'm worthy of knowing? My security, how safe or unsafe am I now going to be? These are all things that are going to come up just giving up what we think we know. Tough.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, God's not interested in any of it. So you're going to have to do all that for yourself. Because God goes, well, you built this great big castle of fake, right? And I know God also has compassion for the fact that your parents helped you build it, right? But fundamentally, we're continuing the building of it, right? So we built this great big castle of fake, great big castle of unreal, and who's going to have to tear it down?
We are.
Me, yeah.
And it's going to take effort, like we said earlier.
Yeah.
I'm going to need to engage my will. All that effort I put into holding on to thinking I know and seeking more answers that weren't based on experience, but I said, oh, that's the truth. Now I have to undo all of those things. Yeah. And it's a good process, but it does take effort.
It's a very necessary process, actually.
And I know from experience you guys can't fix it. And listening to it doesn't.
Not even God can fix it.
Yeah.
The reason why not even God can fix it is because your sin. Your sin God didn't build. Your sin somebody else built. Whoever built it, mostly ourselves, right? God doesn't blame you for the sins of others. So all the sin we carry for ourselves, we're going to have to learn how to fix it. We're going to have to learn how to identify it. Can I get you to just turn to a Paget message for me? It's on page
217, I think it is. Let me just check.
220 or 117? I think it's...
I affectionately call this one, the Holy Spirit's not going to hunt you down. 127.
Yeah, page 127 of your first book. Yeah? I'm going to read the second paragraph. When the soul is in a condition of sin and error, it is not responsive to the inflowing of the Holy Spirit. And in order to get into a condition of receptivity to these influences, it must have an awakening as to its actual condition of enslavement by these things, enslavement by the unreal, right? And until such awakening comes to it, there is no possibility of its receiving the love of God into it, and of turning its thoughts to the truths of God and to the practices of life that will help in its progress towards a condition of freedom. God cannot help you with it. And if you're in a state where you're not sincerely coming to awareness of your sin, then there's no way you're ever going to receive God's love. And on top of that, only you can become awake. Like, your awakeness, your awakening is under your control. So you have people come along to try to help you. There's many spirits, right now there's many spirits in your life trying to help you wake up. You understand? There's people like us who are trying to help you wake up. We're aware that we need to get to this point of sincere ignorance on things in order to learn, right? We're aware of that. That's what I've had to do in this life to get to where I am now. I've had to start at a point of sincere ignorance. I had to get there first, by myself. God didn't help me, aside from influences around me helping me. The laws of cause and effect, laws of attraction, spirits trying to influence me, and they're all trying to help me see I don't know anything. And once I get to the stage where I realise I don't know anything, now I can start to go, but I can search for a thing. I can seek knowledge. And when I'm in a state where I realise I don't know anything, I'm going to be like a child soaking up knowledge. Not like an adult who already thinks they know and so they don't need to soak up knowledge anymore. Right? That makes sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Very important to understand, this is something we'll talk about a bit more maybe in the weekend, the whole concept of how the awakening to sin must happen before you can pray for forgiveness. Before you can long to be forgiven for your sin, you have to know how you sin. Part of last year's exercise with you is to show you in physical ways. I'm sinning there, I'm sinning there. And also help you over a year see whether you're even dedicated to fixing them or not. Mm-hmm. So those of you who haven't fixed any of them, you know, I haven't been that dedicated right to fixing these things. I don't even want to fix my physical sins, let alone my sexual, emotional and spiritual sins, which are greater than those physical problems, right? So, we talk about becoming a vegan. Well, that's just a physical thing again. How many of you are actually vegan, where you only eat like those products? Yeah? Okay, so half. Again, you've heard that from us for years and years, right? And can you see what the psyche is saying? The sin itself. You could say it's a psyche of its own, couldn't you? Inside of you. It's sort of like the sin itself lives inside of you. It's our own creation, but it also becomes a thing that pushes you to justify itself. Mm-hmm. So we go, it's too hard to be vegan. Look, nowadays, and I don't know if you've noticed it here. I'll just get my pens. I don't know if you've noticed it here, but over the last 5 years, it's become harder to be a vegan if you're reliant on manufactured products. Of course, from God's perspective, you don't need to rely on manufactured products because God's already manufactured all the food you need. And in fact, again, if you'd listened to the Paget messages and read them, it says in there that they eat fruits and nuts. So as soon as I read that, this was like 20 years ago for me, I go, well, my diet's got to be fruit and nuts. For me, that was really easy because I love them both, right? And I'm not worried about getting fat on nuts. Like, nuts don't make me fat. What makes me fat is all the crap food that we eat while we're travelling. Like, in the sense that it's bad, it's poorly nutritious, it doesn't feel valuable, so you end up eating more. And it's very, very hard now even to buy natural foods that are not polluted one way or the other. There are the things that damage us more than eating what God provided, right? God provided us a natural diet we can all survive on easy enough. The whole concept that you can't build muscle without eating meat is completely flawed. Cows build muscle. And do they eat meat? Well, unfortunately now, many of your cows are eating meat, right? They are feeding other offal and all sorts of things to them, but that's not the intention, is it? And cows 100 years ago, 200 years ago, of course, that never happened. So they ate what they were designed to eat, and they still built muscle. You can too, right? If you lose muscle from a vegan diet, then there must be an emotional reason why. And it was for me, when I started my vegan diet, I lost nearly 20 kilograms. I went from 84 kilograms to 62 kilograms. And everyone around me was saying, you've got to get back on the meat. Something wrong with you? You look gaunt and you look sick now. And I'm going, no, it's just emotion. I've got to sort out the emotion. Right? I have a completely vegan diet now, and what weight do you think I am? I'm back up at 80 kilograms. Right? So you just have to deal with things, that's all. Deal with things in harmony with the design. Most of us don't do that. Some people get sick when they start a vegan diet. They go, but I get sick, so I've got to go back to the other. And I go, there's a reason why you're getting sick. Deal with the reason why you get sick and you won't get sick anymore. Eating what God provided. God designed you to eat that stuff, so you're not going to get sick on it unless you have some kind of issue with it, some kind of emotion associated with it, right? But these are the things we think we know. Doctors. Go to the doctor and he says, do you eat meat? And I say, no. Oh. He thinks he knows. Right? Then he says, I'm going to have to take a blood test. Now, last time I had a blood test was about 10 years ago or so. Took a blood test. Oh. There was no more comment about my diet. Because all of my blood work was perfect. And he goes, oh, you're actually quite healthy. I said, yeah. Well, normally that's not the case for a person being a vegan, he said. I said, well, that's because they don't deal with their feelings. He said, I don't know. I don't agree with that. Said, fair enough. That's what I've done. There's a result and you've measured it. Why wouldn't you think it might apply to somebody else? That's because he thinks he knows. He's been educated, you see. He's had to go, how long to university to become a doctor?
Long time.
It's a long time, isn't it? The more you go to higher education nowadays, the more most people think they know, and they have a lot of these emotions attached to that. Worth, acceptance, value, respect. This is why they feel they can charge you a lot of money even though you're sick. Like, to me, that's such a bad philosophy. It's like saying, okay, I'm going to leverage your sickness to my wealth. That's dark, isn't it? To leverage somebody else's misfortune to your wealth. That's dark. Just a thought, but because the worth and control, security, all these other things are a part of the psyche, the false perception of self that's being created, the fake self that's being created, thinking we know, we can't reach a place where we're sincerely willing to investigate. We can't get 5 or 10 people and say, let's do a study. You're all meat eaters now. Let's put you all on a vegan diet, and as you get sick, it's probably likely they're all going to get sick, right? Or something's going to happen. We'll try to work out what emotions you've got going on to cause you to get sick. Because we know, if we start from the premise, God created that food, there must be a reason why you're getting sick on it. All right? And if I did that as a study, there's not a single doctor in the world, I don't think, that's actually done that study. Isn't that interesting? That doesn't make any sense to me. But it's all because they think they know. They're not starting from sincere ignorance. They think they know. And this is the trouble. Everything we think we know prevents us from investigation and being educated. It prevents us from gaining the knowledge through seeking. Right? And the trouble with that is that if we think we know what God's love is, and we think we know we're praying, and we're actually not, can you see there's not going to be any benefit to it? No, none at all. And we're going to be in the state where we think there is, where we even create the facade of it being a state. In your country, it's what? Rated as 70% Christian, is that right? Around that? In other countries where they're 70% Muslim, they all are praying. and yet they're willing to go to war with each other, right? So there's got to be something wrong, doesn't it? Obviously, their concept of prayer is completely warped. Something's wrong. And yet each religion has a very, very firm concept of what prayer is. And yet it obviously is not benefiting society or them, because they're considering killing other people under certain circumstances. They can even be carrying a gun on their back and pray. How does that happen? That's got to happen because you think you know something that you obviously don't. That's the only way it can happen. There's no other way that can happen without there being something wrong with our sincerity. Right? When you examine the world as we see it today, you can see the true effects of a lack of sincerity almost everywhere. Right? It's done in every walk of life, every profession. There's a lack of sincerity. And some professions are renowned for their lack of sincerity, aren't they? Mm-hmm. Like politics, lawyers, renowned for the lack of sincerity, right? But most of us don't consider, they all came from us. They all came from our society. There must be an honour to the point where we're willing to vote these people in and give them powerful positions and pay them huge amounts of money. We've got to honour the fact that they have a lack of sincerity. In fact, when a couple breaks up, they often say, I'm going to get myself a dog lawyer, you know. I'm going to get myself the most insincere fellow I can find. And he's often paid the most. Right? Because we as a society honour insincerity. Yeah? These are all the problems, and you can see, if we're talking about prayer, and prayer is a sincere longing, can you see the import of that discussion? Like, you can see how important it is to connect our lack of sincerity to the ineffectiveness of our ability to receive God's love. Do you see? And therefore the ineffectiveness of it changing us, because it can't. We're not actually receiving anything of value because we haven't started from the point where we're sincere. And that's our problem. And as I said, the more we think we know, the more insincere we actually are. If we go up the back.
Stephen, up the back.
And then down the front here.
So as I understand it, our intellect is a tool.
Yes.
And
it's like a hammer.
Pardon?
It's like a hammer.
Like a hammer. And as individually and as society, we're all using it incorrectly and creating all this facade and false realities that's causing so much pain and suffering.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct.
So then what would be the correct use of this tool, and how would we learn how to do that?
Well, that's a different discussion in itself, because I could spend a few days on that.
Please.
Yeah. So at some point, we're probably going to have that discussion, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if I want to have it right now.
All right.
Because it's going to take some time. But can I just give you a few general concepts and ideas? If our soul is the real self, then I can use my intellect to understand what that is. Now, I might not understand, because the mind itself is incapable of understanding the soul, but at least I can help my intellect to get to the state where I start to see that probably everything I know, or what I think I know about myself, is probably false. And that includes my design, what I've designed, what God designed me to be. That's probably false too. Right, my concept of it is probably false. Now, you can use your intellect, can't you, as a tool. The desire in the soul would go, right, I want to know what is true. That's the soul. I want to really know what is true. I want to have an experience of the truth of this thing. That's my soul. And that passion and desire in me can then guide my intellect to go, what? How do I do that? How do I discover that? What things can I do to discover that? What can my intellect do? And for the most part, it's going to have to learn how to get out of the way, right? Mm-hmm. And actually go through the emotional experience. You see, most of us are embedded in our intellect because we're trying to prevent our emotional experience. And the way we've learnt to do it over many, many years is to stay in our mind rather than actually acknowledge the truth of our soul, the feelings that are in our soul. But you can use your mind to do it differently. However, if you continue to use your mind to do it differently as long as you possibly can, you're going to run into a trouble with it because your mind is still the dominant thing. You're going to have to learn that the soul's intellect is its feelings. And you're going to have to start making decisions based on those feelings that are in harmony with love. You're going to have to come to that conclusion. So an example of that is with the toilet paper thing. If we just go back to that. This is a simple sort of description of that. So here I go to the toilet paper thing. I'm using it, right? I use it every day to wipe my bottom, right? So I'm using it. If I got to the point, if I can use my mind to get to a point where I get to a point of sincere ignorance about it. In other words, I realise I don't know nothing about what that does. I don't know anything about the damage that causes to the world, the damage to the environment, the damage to animals. I don't understand any of that. And I don't also understand what the replacement is. I don't even get that. I've never even thought of it because I've never been educated to think about any of these things from my childhood. From childhood, when my mother and father started wiping my bottom for me, because that was the first thing that happened, what did they use mostly? A paper product of some kind, right? And they threw it away, just right. That's what they used, and they taught me from that age. That's what and I've never given it any consideration whatsoever. Now, I can use my mind at least to realise I don't understand why I even do it. I don't even get why I do it. What if I did something different? What would the different thing be? I haven't even considered that right at this point. So you can say the first part of it is going, I need education about what that thing is. Now, there's two ways to gain education, really. There's the emotional experience of the education, and then there's the intellect of the education. So an example of that is the intellect of the education is I look up, I do research, right, in books and nowadays, unfortunately, probably on the net, because that's where most of the books are unfortunately now stored, right? So you do some research and you'd find out this is how toilet paper is made. This is the process it goes through. This is how much water is damaged by it. This is how much of our land is damaged by it. What are the consequences to our natural environment? Like in terms of the amount of creatures that are getting destroyed by it. Now, can you see I'm using my mind, but the emotion is saying, I've got to know. The emotion is saying, I've got to educate myself about this, find out what's really going on. So I get to a point where I really understand that for every little sheet of paper, I'm using a litre of water almost of the world, right? And it's not salt water either. It's fresh water, right? So until I know these things and I really grasp them and understand them, I get to the point where I go, wow, I didn't know before, but now I have at least some inclination, some knowledge now, and this knowledge now feeds back into my feelings. Can you see? So now the knowledge, I'm like damage here, damage there, problem here, problem there, problem here, problem there. There is an alternative that's quite easy that God's already provided that uses, ironically, less water than creating the paper does. And like there's all these things that I start learning, and then that feeds back, my knowledge feeds back into my feelings, and I go, do I want to keep doing this? or do I want to stop? Can you see, until you get to that point, you won't have a motive to stop. The motive would be to continue, because it's easy to go to a shelf in the supermarket and buy the paper, right? I don't think it's as easy as you think, because come the future, the next 5 years, and it's already probably happened in your country to some extent in COVID, right? What was the very first thing that disappeared out of that? It was the toilet paper. It's not going to be there in every circumstance or situation, right? But we're not thinking all of that initially. But as we go through and discover, we go, I can feel now that I want to do something different. So now my soul is being educated through the education process to actually feel about the problem rather than just think about it. Once I get to a state of feeling about a problem, there's a very good likelihood that I'll change. That make sense?
Makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Yeah. Once I feel about a problem and really understand the problem and are really educated on the problem, now there's a motivation, a passion that starts developing inside of me that says, I've got to do something different. And you don't go out trying to change everybody else. You don't. What you do first is you try to change you first. So like Mary and I have not been using toilet paper since I met Mary, right? Well, even before then, I think.
No, I think about then.
About then, yeah.
When we got the bidet in the bathroom.
Because it became very clear to me years and years ago, right, that it was wrong. And I educated myself about it and I realised how wrong it is. And then I realised this is such an easy solution, right? It was just such an easy solution that wasn't really damaging the environment or anything else either. And it could be incorporated into your toilet, solution. Very easy solutions, and yet hardly anybody does them, right? But when you have a desire to do them, so I went out and I bought 10 handheld bidets, right? And I've still got some of them to this day, but every single toilet that I've ever come across, including those in people that I stay in their houses or whatever, I take one with me, put it on their toilet. You follow?
I do, thank you.
Because the motivation, I don't care if it's cost me whatever it cost me, I'm just trying to, part of the education is educate everyone. At home now, everyone around us does that. But that only started because I educated them. So this is the other thing that happens, is once you educate yourself and you're really passionate about it, then you go, I can convince other people because of the knowledge I can present, because it's factual. I can convince other people that it's true. And in process of convincing other people it's true, they might change. And then if they change, then there's more people not doing it. And then there's less damage to the environment. You understand? I want to share that. That's why we shared truth, right? Truth, even about toilet paper, even though it might be confronting. That's why we share it, because we've gone through the actual process. Now it's an experience. Once it's an experience for me, you'll never go back. You'll never reverse something that's a better experience. You'll never go back to the worst experience. Right? Mary and I hate travelling in some ways. One reason why is because it's so rough on your backside. It's hard because there's toilets you go to in an airport and there's no running water to wash your bottom, and there's, there could easily be, but there isn't, Yeah. Make sense?
It does, thank you.
Yep. Of course we could flesh that out for 3 days.
Yeah.
In all sorts of ways, couldn't we? Yeah. Yep. We were down here somewhere, weren't we? Next.
Yeah.
Oh, no, down here we were next. Yes.
Daniela.
And then come across here on this side.
Jordan and over here.
Yeah.
Virginia.
So you leave your head up.
So it's somewhat related to, maybe partially you answer the question, but
Yep.
let's say we become more sincere about a desire, and then maybe I realize that I'm a little bit more sincere, and then I pray for God in that moment. How do we know that if I pray for God, I'm not receiving like a feedback that is not from God, because maybe I never received it before. So how do I know that it's
very easy to answer that. If your desire was truly sincere, it will always be from God.
So would that reflect in how convinced I am? Like you say, if you have an experience, you're very firm about it. So I know that I'm very...
The problem is most of us don't want to do this, right? So what happens is we start praying, we're going, but I don't want to have to deal with worth issues and acceptance issues. What do I think I know? I don't want to get to the stage of sincere ignorance where I understand I don't know. I don't want to get to that stage because my worth and acceptance and my value and the respect of others will... So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to believe I know. So when I pray, you know, Jesus says pray, so what I do is I pray, and instead of thinking about what prayer is, which is a sincere longing, I'm not exercising one right yet, right? Because I don't even know what a sincere longing is to exercise it, right? In that state, you're going to be longing for what? You're going to be longing for these emotions to be avoided. You're going to be longing to have your desires met instantly. You're going to be longing that, you know, all of your problems, and this is where most of you have gone, by the way, with prayer, is you only pray to God when you've got a problem, right? So you think all your problems are somehow going to get fixed by prayer. No, your problems got created by you. You're going to have to fix them. Prayer only is going to fix them in a secondary sense, and we'll talk about that maybe later. But initially, it's probably guaranteed that your prayer is not towards God. And once I get to this stage and I go, all the times I've prayed before, it probably hasn't been to God. It's been to avoid sincerity. It's to avoid action, to avoid having to really do the difficult thing, the hard thing which is to identify my own sin. So when Mary writes up later, she'll write up the process we went through in Canada, right? You'll see that the whole point of the process is get to the point to identify your sin, because as we just read you remember what we've just read? Let's read it again. In that message, page 127, it says quite clearly, doesn't it, that when the soul is in a condition of sin and error, it is not responsive to the inflowing of the Holy Spirit, right? And in order to get into a condition of receptivity to these influences, it must have an awakening as to its actual condition. Okay, so if we see that and we go, okay, I'm reading that from the Paget message, and I go, okay, the biggest problem I have is my lack of awakening to my actual condition. The sin is enslaving me and I don't even know what the sin is. I haven't even identified it yet. Now, under those circumstances, when you pray, you're not going to be sincere. Ever sincere. A true sincere person wants to know what their sin is. And not only do they want to know what the sin is, they also want to fix it. And they don't expect a magical fix. They want to fix it themselves. They want to repair it themselves. Now, when you want to repair something yourself, if we go through this process, first we start in a process where we're sincerely ignorant, then we get to a stage where now we can seek information. Remember I said that earlier. Mary will write that on the board in a minute. So we're seeking information. What about my sin? I'm not seeking to avoid my sin. I'm not praying to get rid of this problem. I'm not doing any of those things. I'm seeking information from whatever source I can get it about my sin. That's sincere. Once you do that, you'll get answers. And they'll always be either from God or from someone that God is trying to influence to give you answers. Always. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Thank you.
Now, the majority of us aren't doing that with our prayer. What we're doing with our prayer is we're hoping to avoid our problems, most of which we personally created with our prayer. So like I have a breakdown over my marriage. I need to pray about it. This is a common Christian concept too, isn't it? And a common Muslim concept, that you pray about the things that are hurting you. Well, if it's that, you're not sincere. Does that make sense? You're not sincere yet, right? The thing to pray about is becoming sincere first. That's the thing to pray about first. What do I need to do to become sincere?
Yeah. If you take on the exercise of praying for God's love, I've shared about this before, just pray whenever you think about it. Make it a daily priority. I'm going to ask God for love. The very first things that start to happen is you realise how insincere you are actually about that process. And then over time, my experience is you keep getting told, oh, still arrogant there, oh, still arrogant there, oh, still arrogant there, still wanting my definition, not God's definition.
Wanting to avoid your pain there, wanting to just get pleasure there, wanting...
So the activity of asking for God's love, even from an insincere place, if you have an aspiration to become sincere, you quickly learn how insincere you are and you can start to develop sincerity in the longing. But as Jesus said, most of us want to ask God for love once when we're in pain, receive a magical feeling that says it's really not your fault, it's everybody else's fault, and move on with your day and say, oh, God loves me. Now, who's going to give you that feeling? It's not God. God knows that you're far more capable, you've got a lot more capacity to exert will, to become more humble, to become more sincere. It's only a spirit who's in codependence with you who's going to give you that kind of response. So unless you're in a process of developing sincerity, engaging your will, desiring to see where you're arrogant, the responses you're getting are not going to be the happy, warm, fuzzy feelings you're going to be getting are not going to be from God.
Thank you. As a doctor of bottoms, I've seen countless bottoms over the last 30 years. I have not used toilet paper in more than 25 years. I just wanted to say I have yet to see a clean bottom that's been cleaned with paper.
Yes.
And countless numbers of patients who come with, rashes and irritations, and all I've done is said, don't use paper anymore, use water. And that solved it when they've knocked on many doors before. So there is scientific evidence that, most anorectal disorders will fix if you use water.
Correct.
And majority of what we see in our practices is people using toilet paper, and it's so harsh on the bottom.
Yes.
So that.
And I love this analogy because for a number of reasons. The example of the toilet paper is most people aren't even comfortable with their own bodies. How many times do you poo? At least once a day. Probably you can tell me if that's healthy or not. But, and most people can't even, like in the US, you can't even say toilet. We're going to the bathroom. We're not even going to do the unmentionable, So most people can't even think about what we're doing in there, let alone be connected to what our body is doing. So there's all this facade we have around our own bodily functions. But even further than that, it's this idea that what we're doing, like Jesus says, we think we know toilet paper is the best solution. That's what our sin says. That's what we couldn't possibly do anything different. How gross, how yucky, how unhygienic, all these excuses, the sin fighting for itself. This is what we're like in every single sin we have. And yet, when we give up any single sin we have, when we truly give it up properly, we are happier and we are healthier. But the sin says we're not going to be happier, it's not going to be better, but actually it always is. Yeah.
Yes, it is from the standpoint of the anatomy, it has the most nerve endings than any other part of the body. And so my earliest observations when I moved here was, how do you not know that you've still got paper in your bottom? Because every time I look at the toilet, when I look at a bottom, I'm like, and these are very meticulously clean people. And I'm like,
this is the other thing. Sin numbs you
exactly
to pain.
Exactly.
Like the more you sin, the more pain you actually have, but you become more numb to it as well.
You detune
from it all the time.
Exactly.
Physically, emotionally, sexually, spiritually, that's what happens.
And I talked about this in the UK where everyone got a bit embarrassed, where I said, use these water and wipes and you're going to have a lot more pleasure in these areas, because
because it's clearly that they are not sensitive to that, and so they don't even know what they don't know, is my point.
Correct.
And the other thing I wanted to say was, was your comment about the vegan diet and doctors studying it. There has been a lot of study in that, and they've shown, Dr. Esselstyn has shown, for instance, people with end-stage heart disease that he took who were not candidates for surgery, put them on a plant-based diet, and they were not expected to live even 5 years,
True,
and 100% of them lived well.
True, but very little study about the emotion and the belief.
Exactly, and that's
drives
the
it.
other thing. You know, I've been thinking about this for a long time, obviously because of my desire to conform.
Yeah.
And the relationship to pain is the biggest drawback I run into. Most patients are unwilling to even address their relationship with the pain.
Correct.
And then there is the Christian belief that, you know, you talk about God with your minister. So as a doctor, if you're talking about God, then, you know what are you going to do to fix me? Yes, all this is fine and dandy, but what are you going to do with respect to emotion? I'm like, no, feel your pain. And that...
Well, not just that, they want to almost blame the doctor for the fact that they have pain.
Exactly.
Rather than see that it's their own sin that has probably caused the pain.
So that has been my biggest obstacle, and I'm sure as I'm changing, I will attract people who want to walk that path as well.
Yeah.
Because I do want to address the emotions and actually show that, you know, you can do what exactly you've done and I'm doing and everybody else I know who have done the work.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
of course, we're just talking about wiping your bottom rather than wiping your soul of its sin. And of course that's going to be harder, like to do the same thing with beliefs and to do the same thing with emotions and to do the same thing with our sexual issues. The sexual problems on earth are becoming rampantly bad, and all of these problems are all much more difficult solutions. And so a lot of it does boil down to educating the masses about the facts. And this is where we see a lot of people who hear even divine truth aren't sharing it. And fundamentally it's because they're not dealing with one emotional problem, and that's fear. They're not dealing with that emotional problem. They're not seeing how big sin is. That fear is a sin, and how big that sin is. And unfortunately, unless you deal with these kind of feelings, you can focus quite easily on a physical problem. So when I focus, say, on toilet paper, most people in an audience, while they are a bit shocked that I'm talking about bodily functions, they're not very surprised once I present some facts to them about it. But now let's change the subject to say something that's still a relatively a physical problem, but contains some emotions, such as pets, right? Now I'm the worst person in the world sharing some truth.
It's not just a bit risque to talk about toilets, it's just, no, that's wrong.
Yeah. We've got billions of domesticated animals on this planet that we don't need to have. Their resources, by the way, many of them are getting killed, millions are getting killed on a daily basis, right? Many of these animals are getting killed on a daily basis, and we're not even using all of the resources from them. So an example of that, there are more than 98% of sheep that die, their pelts get buried. 2% of the pelts, the wool pelts, the sheepskins, get used. The rest get burnt or buried. Now, if you were a logical society and you wanted to eat meat, surely you would at least do what the Indians here used to do and use the entire animal. Surely, if you're going to do that, surely you would do that. Surely you wouldn't waste such a precious resource such as leather, right? Because it is a precious resource, and yet this is what is happening. So even the people who are still eating meat don't understand the ramifications of the fact that there is 98% of the animal's outer skin being wasted. So that means out of every 100 sheep, two are used for leather of their pelt, and 98 are burnt or buried.
And that's because
Right.
there's a division of industry. So there's an industry of growing sheep for food. There's an industry of growing sheep for leather or sheepskin. And they're completely separate from each other. They're managed differently. There's a different economy around them. And yet there's waste in each industry.
Yeah.
Massive waste in each one.
Yeah. So even if you were not vegan, at least some education would change that. You understand? But when it comes to doing something like with pets, where your own pet now has to be considered as to whether you are wise having it at all, and what are you going to do about it if you don't have it, and you can't give, from God's perspective, you can't give your problems to other people either, so you're going to have to deal with it yourself, right? Not give it to some person who's going to inject it with something to put it to sleep, but you're going to have to actually deal with it yourself if you're going to do this properly, like if you're going to do it in harmony with God's truth and God's laws. You're going to have to deal with your own sin and its consequences. And if you have that, when it comes to talking about pets, now can you see how people are going to respond to that conversation when I have that conversation? Right? Already, the people who know divine truth and have heard it for 20 years, how they're responding to it is bad enough, right? Let alone how the world's going to respond to it. To overcome that, you're going to have courage to educate. The courage to educate others, no matter what the results. This is an issue we face as well, a lack of courage. Courage is a spiritual quality.
Apparently the average dog eats about 66 chickens a year.
That's right.
And most people, when they read about that...
Yeah, so they keep their pet, one dog, to keep it alive, you've got to kill 66 chickens every year. It's the equivalent of killing 1 or 2 cattle every year, right? 4 or 5 sheep every year. But that's not the only damage. The damage is what that animal is doing to your emotion, like by you putting so much investment in it and treating it like it's a child, right? The animal is believing itself it feels itself to be superior because you treat it as if it's superior. So now it's going to go and destroy other animals because of the feeling that it has from you, that it is superior. It will begin to do that as well. So it will no longer kill for the sake of food, it'll kill for the sake of pleasure, your pleasure, ironically. Yeah. And so in Australia, 180-something birds, native birds, die every year from one cat.
Yep.
Every cat, there's like millions of cats in Australia, like pets, like some households have 2 or 3, but most have at least 1. And so you have 20 million cats destroying 180 birds a year each. Can you see why our natural environment is getting destroyed? There's billions of animals being destroyed by our pets, really by our emotion about pets, our sin about pets.
Yeah,
this is what education will do. Education will provide you with these facts. But see, most people who have their pet don't want to be educated. So that's a problem. And this is where it goes down to what we think we know. We've got all these feelings associated with not wanting any other education, not wanting any other facts. And so what we do is we preclude ourselves from investigating because we're not in a state of sincere ignorance when we began. We're in a state of, no, I want my cat. That's not a state of sincere ignorance about your pet. That's a state of, I already know what I want. I already know I need this pet. I want this pet. I need it for my life. My cat's done nothing wrong. I keep my cat inside. It doesn't hurt any birds. And, there's all sorts of things you'll come up with in your sin, not understanding all of the ramifications of the problem, right? And until you educate yourself, you won't understand. But you won't educate yourself if you don't start here. You will purposefully go, I want to ignore that. I want to avoid that. I don't want to know about that, right? I don't want to see that. I just want what I want. This is the trouble with our society. We all want what we want without considering the full ramifications of what we want. Yeah?
The other thing I wanted to ask about was the word sin.
Yep.
Because when I talk about divine truth or I talk about issues, and I use that word sin, I automatically see the shutter come down because there is the Christian belief that interferes. So
No, it's not a Christian belief that interferes. It's the emotions associated with the word sin that interferes.
Yeah.
Everyone's got emotions they're going to have to deal with. The reason why I use that word purposefully is so that you are confronted with your emotions about that word. All that word really means is missing the mark of God's love, right?
correct.
Missing the mark of perfection. That's what it means. But when I say all that means, that's a huge thing.
They feel judgment. They say you're judging them. And then there is, I just wondered if you would contrast the way you use the word.
They will be judged. The reality is the law is judging them right now. Every time I sin, the law is judging me. It's condemning me. It's saying, you've done the wrong thing, here's the penalty. All I'm doing is presenting a reality here.
But also...
You want to reframe it.
Yeah.
And reframing it loses its power.
No, that's why I'm using the word more. But I was not raised Christian, and I just wondered, how, let's say, a clergyman talks about sin versus how we talk about it with, the true meaning.
Yep.
If I'm using the word and they're going back to what they believe because of their challenge.
So there is an onus on you to educate, is there not? Just as in any area of your practice, if you're going to use terminology, you should educate about it.
Yes.
But beyond that,
can I go beyond that? Beyond that, it's like a person needs to start with the word sin and say, I don't know what it is. If I think I know what it is, that's when I react badly.
Yep.
Does that make sense? I think I know what God is, I react badly. I think I know what sin is, I react badly. The problem, so you could say straight away, oh, you've reacted badly to the word sin. The problem is you don't know what it is. Simple, right? As soon as a person really knows and understands what it is, they won't react badly to it. It's a reality. I coined the word in the 1st century, right, and said, this is what it is. And I did it on purpose. I did it on purpose because I knew people would have feelings of judgment and feelings of guilt and feelings of all of these feelings. And I go, well, you need to deal with all those feelings. When you start from a place of sincere ignorance on an issue, you also start with a place of sincere ignorance about the meaning of a word. What does the word God mean? What does the word sin mean? I was talking to a friend of mine a few weeks ago and he said, oh, if you're talking about God being a physicist, then I might be interested. I said, well, of course I'm talking about God being a physicist. He's the greatest physicist in the universe. He knows everything about what he's created. Of course God's a physicist, right? Once they start to see that they haven't started from a place of sincere ignorance on the matter, they've got preconceptions. Now, with every preconception is what we think we know. That's a preconception. A preconception has emotion attached. That's the problem we're dealing with educating you. You have preconceptions and there's emotions attached to it all, right? So when I raise the word sin, there's a preconception. God, there's a preconception. When I talk about law, whoa, big preconceptions there, right? How God wouldn't give us law, God would just give us freedom. That's the concept that we want to hold on to, but that's not true. The only way the universe actually is sustained is via God's laws. So, it's important to talk about law. That's why the Paget messages, you read them, there's a lot of messages in there, isn't there, about law, right? Because it's all about law, what God created. So all of these things we need to come to see and the fastest way to deal with somebody is to help them come to see, when I hear a word and I have an emotional reaction, that's because I'm not starting from sincere ignorance. That's it. I have an opinion and I want to keep it. So when I say the word sin and you have a bad reaction, I'm saying, yeah, that's because you want to keep your bad reaction about that word. You want to go, sin means I'm getting judged. And I don't feel judgmental of you. I don't. You are getting judged though, because every time there's a law, the sin, the law, which God has established universally, judges you and finds you either guilty or innocent. And if you were in harmony with love, you'll be innocent. And if you weren't in harmony with love, you'll be guilty. And the law does that. So I'm not afraid to use the word judgment either. You're definitely getting judged. Not by God specifically, but by the laws that God created. Right? You're definitely getting judged because it's a necessary part of measuring. Like, if you think of the word judgment, what does it really mean? It means measuring. Providing a standard that you measure against. Isn't that what judgment is? The judgment is, was it right or was it wrong? You know, when we say, how hot is it in this room? You judge it, right? You're measuring a standard. You're going, yeah, it's pretty warm. What is the temperature, by the way? Sorry?
86.
86, right? It's gone up 4 since we started, I think. 4 Fahrenheit. Right? Most of you could have felt that already, right? Because you're already assessing it. Your whole body is actually built to judge what's going on around it, to assess and make assessments that you then base decisions upon, right? So even the word judgment to me, if I use the word judge, if I start from a place of sincere ignorance of the word, I'm not going to have a big emotional reaction to that word. I'm going to go, that's what I'm doing every day. I'm judging this and I'm judging that. I'm judging whether this is good or whether this is bad or whether it's beneficial to me or whether it's not. So once you start from a place of sincere ignorance, can you see you no longer have any emotional burden to wade yourself through anymore about that issue. The problem that we all have is we have so many emotional burdens associated even with words that we can't even hear the word and understand what it is and understand its true meaning. So now the meaning of judgment has changed. So you look in the dictionary now, the meaning of judgment is not all about weighing things in a balance. There's a whole section of the word's meaning that talks about people condemning you. People thinking you're lesser than them, feeling that they are superior to you, things like that. So in other words, there's issues with worth. Somebody treating me as if I'm inferior to them because I did something that they wouldn't do. And now I have a worth issue associated with it. Now, if I started from sincere ignorance on my emotions, not just with my intellect, with my emotions, can I see even the word would not offend me? So I can talk about all sorts of words like that would normally offend a person, and I'm going, well, there's no offence in the word. The word has a meaning, and all we're doing is using the meaning. Now, when you read the Paget messages, you're going to find words that offend you. You are. Like, why all the way through does it use the term men rather than humans? Well, if I don't have any emotional baggage about that, am I going to be offended? No. Right? It's a shorter word. It's more economical to just say men, women, whatever, rather than having to say human all the time, right? That's why it was done, through economy, partly, right? It has the same meaning. It means all of us who have been created. But when I'm offended by it, can you see there must be some state other than sincere ignorance now that exists about that, right? There's going to be words like sin, disharmony. There's going to be like confronting words that you read even in those messages, and there'll be emotional reactions you have, and not all of them will be good. We encourage you to read them, right? And you're going to find it, some of you are going to find it quite hard to read because you'll have this men thing all the time. And you'll be going, oh, when are they going to talk about women? And then why is there more men that came to Paget rather than women? Rather than seeing that it's a Paget problem, you would start thinking it's a God problem, right? Why is that? Why wouldn't Paget have his problems with regard to men and women? Right? Of course he's going to have his problems. He's just a human. And remember, all the way through the Paget messages it says he's a sinner. And in fact, many times it says he's a worse sinner than other people. Isn't that not true? Mm-hmm. If those of you who read it, you see he says, like many of my friends from the spirit world came to him and said, we don't know why Jesus chose you to do this message, because there's a lot of other people on earth who are in a better place than you are, a better condition than you are. So why has Jesus chosen you? We don't understand why Jesus did it, but obviously he has his reasons, but we don't understand them, right? So, you know, this is the thing you've got to consider, is that there will be things that are in the messages that are not necessarily accurate. But to be frank with you, the Paget messages are the most accurate and important channeled material this earth has ever received, without exception. So if you feel adverse to reading them, it'll be because you're not starting from... Yep. You're not starting from sincere ignorance. You're starting from a place where you have a perspective, a position, a feeling, feelings driving it. And if you can recognise it, it's going to be powerful. Because in recognising it, you'll be able to go, oh, there I go again, having that emotional response to that situation or thinking or feeling, you know. And in the process, you'll learn a lot about yourself as we intended. Yeah.
All right, it's after 1 now, so just...
Yeah, you've done pretty good, guys.
Yeah, well done, everyone.
Stuck it out for 1 hour or 2 hours. Stuck it out in the warm. So it's good. It's only like, it's not even 30 degrees in here, is it?
No, it's 28 or something for now, Celsius.
Nice cool day at home.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what we would like to do after the break is flesh out a bit more of the position where we think, what this position here, the thinking we know, creates emotionally. Because it's very important to understand yourself in terms of your responses to things and why actions to do with sins are not taken. You see, unless you get to the position where you can sincerely pray, which is also a position of sincerely wanting to know how you sin, without condemning yourself for your sin, because the law's already doing that. You don't have to do it as well. Mm-hmm. You understand? The law, God's law is already saying, no, that was wrong, that's right, that's wrong, that's right. The law has already done it. And by the way, you're already getting the consequence of it having done that too. So you don't have to go and punish yourself more. Like, you don't have to buy a whip and every time you notice yourself sinning, hit yourself with it. You don't have to do any of this with your sin, right? It's just a discovery process that we need to learn, a seeking process we need to understand and learn the power and benefit of. And we need to understand all the reasons why we don't do it. Does that make sense? So we're going to try to talk a little bit this afternoon about the reasons why we don't have this sort of seeking attitude, why we're not starting at a position of sincere ignorance and what that looks like. And we want to do that so that it can help you emotionally recognise when you're not starting from this place. Because if you can emotionally recognise you're not starting there, then you know straight away, I've got sin to deal with. That makes sense? A child, a newly conceived child, that's where it is. The pinnacle of God's creation knows nothing. So God's view of your worth isn't based upon what you know. You understand? So stop thinking it is based on what you know, and instead look at what you feel about what you know. Mm-hmm. Yeah? Yeah. All right, well, should we come back at 20, what's that, 10 to 2? Something like that? Yep.
Yeah.
Good-o.
Yep, it's 20 past 1 now.
And if we can open
those,
we'll open the back doors up there if they were closed. They're still open. We can't open this because it's going to be too hot outside, and I'll turn these fans on.
Yeah.
There he is, guys.
Thank you.